The shocking truth: surviving just 24 hours in the brutal Roman legion is impossible. The sun hung low in the blood-red sky, casting long shadows over the dusty training grounds. Soldiers screamed and clashed with heavy metal, their faces twisted in agony, while the haunting echo of their battle cries reverberated off the ancient stone walls. Legends whispered of the cursed Roman legion, a place so brutal, so unforgiving, that no man had ever survived its first day intact. With each blow of the sword, you could almost hear the desperate pleas of those who had tried and failed. Were these mere tales, or was something darker lurking beneath the surface? What really set the legion apart were the strange, twisted rituals that initiated every new recruit. Men stood trembling in a circle, blood poured from ritualistic cuts into the ground, marking a pact with something unseen. The air was thick with the scent of sweat and iron, mixed with a hint of fear that seeped into your soul. Nothing in the world prepared these men for the torturous conditioning that awaited them. Every waking moment was a test of endurance, a competition against time, pain, and ultimately, death. Climbing sheer cliffs, surviving hunger strikes, and enduring beatings that left them gasping for breath, these weren't just training exercises, they were a game of survival. And with each day that passed, the whispers grew louder. Some said the legion was haunted, cursed by the souls of fallen warriors. Others murmured about the night watchman, a specter-like figure seen roaming the camp, wielding a whip made of shadows. Anyone who dared to fall asleep near the training grounds would awaken to a sharp sting on their backs, trailing a line of fire like a serpent's bite. But nobody dared to leave. Fear of the night watchman kept them shackled to their fate, feeding an insatiable terror that gripped their hearts. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the sun dipped below the horizon, darkness enveloped them like a heavy shroud. A sudden, bone-chilling silence fell over the camp. The soldiers exchanged glances, their eyes wide with fright. What lay in wait for them on this night? They gripped their weapons, hearts racing. Shadows danced around them, whispering secrets that tugged at the edges of their sanity. An unearthly howl pierced the stillness, causing their muscles to tense and breath to hitch. The rumors were true, the return of the night watchman was imminent. With every moment, they felt the grip of the unknown tightening around them. Would anyone escape the legion this time? Would they face a fate worse than death? As footsteps approached, echoing ominously in the night, the question lingered: who would survive the dark horrors of this twisted Roman nightmare? The air shifted, thickening with dread as the echo of the footsteps grew closer. Each soldier felt the shivers crawl down their spines, a primal warning that something unspeakable was drawing near. Shadows twisted into grotesque forms, dancing around the flickers of their dim torches. "Stand your ground," screamed Marcus, a veteran whose eyes glittered with fear and a steely resolve. The men tightened their grips on their swords, the cold metal biting into their palms. They felt a surge of adrenaline, but deep down, they knew this was no ordinary battle. The night watchman was not to be trifled with. The cool night air was broken by the sound of a whip slicing through the silence, an unnerving crack that rattled everyone's nerves. The soldiers flinched, glancing at one another. No one dared to breathe, yet the oppressive weight of consequence loomed heavily over them. Each second felt stretched, the ticking of an unseen clock echoing in their minds. Suddenly, from the shadows emerged a specter, wreathed in tattered cloaks that seemed to absorb the light. The night watchman stood tall, his face hidden beneath a tattered hood, a malicious grin curling beneath. He wielded a whip that looked alive, writhing like a serpent in his hands. "Miserable worms," he taunted, his voice echoing, reverberating like thunder against the stone walls. "You think you can endure? Let the game begin." Without warning, he lashed out, the whip crackling against the ground, sending a shockwave of fear through the ranks. One soldier stumbled, breaking their formation as a few behind him shrieked, clutching their heads, slipping into primal panic. It was as if he could smell their fear, feeding off it with a hunger that felt insatiable. The men hesitated. They had heard tales of the watchman, but to face him in flesh was a horror beyond imagination. In that moment, Marcus snapped into action. "Fight!" "Together," he howled, rallying those around him. They charged together, desperate to face the embodiment of their nightmares. Yet the night watchman was quick, dodging their blows as if playing a cruel game of tag. With each strike, he retaliated with his whip, scoring flesh and drawing blood. The sound of flesh meeting leather punctuated the night. Cries of agony echoed alongside sparks of rage, illuminating the darkness between them. The men fought valiantly but were met with relentless strikes, each lash tasting of despair. Marcus felt the burn as the whip connected with his back, a searing pain that brought him to his knees. But it was when he glanced up, through the haze of pain, that something shifted. The soldiers weren't fighting just for survival, they were fighting against something more profound, a curse that threatened to consume them all. Then, amidst the chaos, the whispers returned, voices from the fallen soldiers, echoing in the wind. "Remember us, break the cycle." A flicker of understanding ignited within Marcus. If they were to survive, they needed more than swords. They needed unity, a break in the torment wrought by fear. As he struggled to stand, he called out to his comrades. "We're not just soldiers. We're brothers. Together." But as the night watchman surged forward with malicious glee, delivering a fatal strike toward Marcus, an earth-shattering roar echoed in the darkness, sending both men reeling. What had just awakened? And what doom awaited them next in the shadows behind the night? The chilling question hung heavily in the air as chaos swirled around them, begging for the answer. Would the soldiers stand as one, or would the night consume them whole? The clash of shadows and screams filled the air, creating a cacophony that clawed at every soldier's sanity. All around him, the chaos erupted, but Marcus's focus sharpened. The sheer force of that roar had shifted something primal within him. Perhaps it was hope. No, more like survival screaming for a chance. With gritted teeth, he rose to his feet, his back aflame with pain. He ignored it. His comrades were faltering, grappling with fear and despair. The night watchman spun like a wraith, his laughter mingling with the terrified breaths of the men. Just then, one soldier stumbled into Marcus, eyes wide and wild, panic flooding his face. "We can't win, Marcus. He's too powerful." "Forget what you've heard," Marcus shouted, forcing conviction into his voice. "We have each other. That's our strength." He pivoted, catching a glimpse of the night watchman as he flicked his whip, striking out viciously against another soldier, a young man barely out of his teens. The boy crumpled to the ground, clutching his bleeding shoulder. The sight made Marcus's heart seize. "Get up. Fight!" he roared, desperation lacing his words. But as he watched his brothers fall around him, doubt crept back in. They were not merely fighting a man, they were battling a nightmare that thrived on their terror. The whispers of the fallen tugged at the edges of his mind. "Remember us, break the cycle." There was a flicker of realization, a truth that lingered in the air, taunting him. What if we don't just fight for our lives?" he whispered, barely audible over the din. "What if we fight for those lost?" The figure of the night watchman twisted toward him, eyes glinting with malice. "What do you think you can change, fool?" he hissed, his voice oozing contempt. "This is the night's domain. You are nothing but pawns." "No. We're more than that." Marcus barked back, his voice rising above the chaos. Rallying his comrades, he yelled, "Focus. We're fighting for every soul lost to this nightmare. We fight for them." Hesitantly, the soldiers glanced at one another, the sparks of camaraderie rekindling within their hearts. Marcus plunged forward, gathering his brothers behind him. Together, they formed a line, united by something deeper than fear, purpose. They surged towards the night watchman, swords raised high, a band of warriors ignited by the memory of the fallen. The night watchman recoiled slightly, adjusting his stance as if unprepared for such a shift. The whip sliced the air, but they moved as one, dodging his strikes, spurred by renewed determination. Cries of "for them" erupted from their ranks, and hearing that war cry sent a jolt through Marcus. It was their chant, their connection. But suddenly, the earth quaked beneath them, as if responding to the night watchman's fury. He uttered incantations, eyes glowing with an eerie light, twisting the very fabric of reality around them. Shadows thickened, growing hands that reached hungrily for the soldiers, trying to pull them apart. "Fight! Keep moving!" Marcus shouted, slicing through the encroaching darkness. He felt the strength of his comrades right beside him, each thrust of his sword resonated through the line like a heartbeat. With the battle escalating, Marcus realized too late that the night watchman was not just a guardian of the dark, he was a purveyor of despair, feeding on their every fear, drawing strength from their collective panic. Just as defeat crept closer, the whispers turned into a roar, "Break the cycle. Remember us." That was it. They weren't merely fighting for survival, they were fighting to avenge the lost. Suddenly, an explosion of light burst from the center of their circle, illuminating the dark. What or who had awakened? As the blinding light filled the darkness, Marcus felt a surge of hope while the night watchman staggered, momentarily disoriented. Had someone else joined the fray? But just as he turned to his comrades, ready to seize the moment, the shadows coiled back, readying for another attack. Would they be able to harness this newfound power, or would the darkness swallow them whole? In the split second of confusion, everything hung in the balance, begging for an answer. Would this new force be their savior, or their downfall? The brilliance enveloped them, blinding and palpable, roaring in Marcus's ears like a sudden storm. He squinted against the brilliance, breathing in the electric charge swirling in the air. The realization danced just out of reach, they weren't standing alone anymore. Could this light be their salvation? As shadows writhed, the night watchman's taunts faltered. "What trickery is this?" He spat, his voice a venomous hiss. Marcus seized the moment, invigorated by the light. "Push forward. Together!" he cried, as adrenaline coursed through him. His comrades erupted into motion, a tide of steel and resolve crashing against the dark. For every swing and thrust of their swords, the light pulsed, exploding with their collective will. Marcus felt an energy lift him, bolstering each strike, fueling the fight against the darkness that threatened to consume them. Yet, just as it felt like victory loomed, the night watchman raised his arms, and shadows swirled around him like a living shroud. "You think brightness can quell the dark?" he roared, his voice echoing unnaturally. With a sudden flick of his wrist, he summoned a vortex of tendrils, reaching out to grasp at the warriors, trying to squeeze the life from them. The soldiers darted and ducked, but fear began to claw at their hearts again. "Hold fast!" Marcus yelled, forcing his fear down. He locked eyes with the young soldier who had first questioned their ability to win. They were all scared, every face bore the marks of dread. Then, among the swirling shadows, a glimmer of figure stepped into the light. It was a woman, her hair shining like molten gold, her eyes a piercing blue. She raised her hand, and the swirling shadows froze momentarily, as if caught in a web. "I know you!" Marcus shouted, bewildered. She nodded, a scar etched across her cheek. "I am Lyra, the one they call the Luminary. I've come to guide you through this darkness." The soldiers exchanged glances, bewilderment shifting into a tentative hope. At last, someone who could counter the night watchman. But the moment of clarity was shattered as the night watchman roared with derisive laughter. "You think she can save you? The Luminary is but a relic of your hopes." He unleashed a surge of darkness, a tidal wave that threatened to swallow them whole. Lyra stepped forward, unfaltering. "Together, we can vanquish him. The light within you is powerful. Use it." Her voice cut through the chaos, soothing and commanding. With a deep breath, Marcus recalled the whispers of the fallen, the soldiers who had fought valiantly before them. For them. For every life lost. He shouted, channeling the memories of their beloved comrades. Hear their cries. Lyra's voice harmonized with Marcus's, ringing with a strength that filled the air. Each word held weight, stirring the hearts of those fighting alongside him. Together we rise. As Marcus and his brothers raised their swords toward the sky, golden beams erupted from their blades, merging into a blinding wave that surged toward the night watchman. He recoiled, eyes filled with fury as the darkness dissolved beneath the brilliance of their united front, but then a series of screams pierced through the battlefield, cutting through the momentary triumph. It was not the soldiers, it was the shadows, wailing as they were banished, dissolving into nothing but ashes. And then, as silence settled, Marcus felt a shiver of uncertainty creeping up his spine. This isn't over, a whisper floated through the darkness, lingering like an ominous cloud. Just then, the ground trembled once more. Out of the remains of shadows, something began to materialize, eerily familiar, yet dreadful. A new challenge. What now? Marcus murmured, as the eyes of the soldiers widened in horror. Behind them, an ancient stone door began to form from the shadows, slowly opening to reveal a gaping void, darkness spilling forth like an invitation to despair. What lay in the depths? Would it be their salvation or their doom? The air vibrated with tension as they stood on the precipice of the unknown. A low rumble echoed ominously as the stone door creaked open, an unsettling wind sweeping over Marcus and his comrades. It was a chill that tugged at their very souls, whispering secrets they dared not understand. The air grew thick with tension, heavy with the weight of ancient fears. "What is that?" a soldier gasped, his voice trembling. Others echoed his confusion, eyes darting towards the door that led into a void of swirling darkness. It beckoned them with sinister allure, drawing out all the courage they had just rallied against the night watchman. Lyra stepped forward, a fierce resolve in her eyes. "We cannot turn back now. This is part of the battle." Her words were strong, yet Marcus sensed an inkling of doubt lurking behind her fierce facade. The shadows recast themselves, twisting and writhing like restless serpents, each one whispering dark promises. "You think you can face him within?" The night watchman's voice slithered through the air, taunting them. "Step through if you dare, the darkness has more for you than you can fathom." Marcus felt sweat bead at his brow, heart racing as the temptation of retreat clawed at him. "We fought so hard, we can't lose a single one of us now," he yelled, rallying his warriors. But inside, uncertainty gnawed. What lay within that door? Could they withstand whatever horrors awaited them? "Gather your strength," Lyra called, raising an arm. "Channel everything, the light, the pain, and the memories of those who fought bravely." Her voice was a beacon. The soldiers took a collective breath, feeling the spark ignite within them once again. Then came a thunderous roar from the void, shaking the very foundations of the battlefield. "You shall witness your reckoning." The shadows surged, forming a monstrous silhouette poised to leap. Panic flared among the warriors as they instinctively tightened their grips on their swords. "Together on three," Marcus commanded, his heart pounding. 1, 2, 3. In unison, they charged toward the door, swords raised high, guided by a luminous beam that represented their unity and unwavering spirit. But as they crossed the threshold, the world shifted violently. The darkness swallowed them whole, eyes adjusted, revealing a landscape warped and twisted, detached from time and reality. The screams of the past lingered here, ghostly memories clung to the shadows, blurring the lines between friend and foe. Classical statues, eerie in detail, lined the path, their stone faces frozen in expressions of anguish and despair. "What is this place?" a soldier whispered, disbelief etched in his voice. A guttural laughter erupted from the depths, echoing like thunder. "Welcome to my domain." The night watchman's words dripped with malice. "Here, your greatest fears materialize, and the truth shall pierce your hearts." Marcus's stomach twisted. What does he mean by truth? Confusion gripped his mind, making it hard to breathe as tendrils of darkness coiled around his comrades. "No!" Lyra shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. We must hold on to the light. Think of those we fight for. As Marcus struggled against the darkness, he caught a glimpse of horrid images playing out around him, scenes of loss, betrayal, and sacrifice. The faces of fallen warriors flashed before him, their haunting expressions clawing at his resolve. The weight of their sacrifices bore down on him, and the truth hit him like a shattering blow. Could they truly overcome what they had lost? Focus! He shouted, wrenching his gaze away from the visions. Together, we remember, we endure. But right as they began to regain their momentum, the shadows surged forward, wrapping tighter around them. In the swirling chaos, panic crested anew as a dark figure emerged from the depths behind the soldiers, a reflection of all their fears made flesh. A figure they recognized by the scars of battles fought, a ghostly doppelganger of Marcus himself. The ground trembled once again. Was this their end, or just the beginning? As reality shifted and morphed, Marcus's breath quickened, the air thickening with despair and urgency. There was only one thing left to do: fight for the truth, whatever that might truly be. What would it reveal? Marcus stared at the doppelganger looming before him, a twisted reflection of his darkest fears. The figure's eyes burned with a malice so familiar yet foreign, and it wore the scars of his past like a badge, reminding him of every decision he'd ever regretted. The darkness coiled tighter around his comrades, and the air crackled with tension. "Face me!" the shadowy twin snarled. "You think you know pain? You've driven your friends to ruin with your naivete." Each word struck Marcus like a whip, unraveling his resolve. Doubt coursed through him like venom, taunting him with images of defeat and despair. "No!" Lyra yelled, shaking her head fiercely, trying to pierce through the shadows that enveloped them. "We'll not give in to this. We are more than our fears." Her voice anchored him, offered a glimmer of hope against the overwhelming darkness. He glanced at his soldiers, each struggling with their own demons, faces contorted in fear as dusk swarmed around them. They needed him now. He couldn't falter. "Remember the ones we fight for," he bellowed, the words bursting from him with newfound fervor. "Think of their courage." Think of his voice quivered as he thought of the friends he had lost, but he pressed on. "Think of your families waiting for you. We cannot let this monster claim us." As those memories flooded his thoughts, a surge of warmth flowed through him, igniting a fire within their hearts. The soldiers began to rally, pushing against the darkness with a united front. "Forward!" Marcus shouted, lunging at his ghostly double, determination blazing in his eyes. The darkness recoiled slightly as if sensing their resolve. The figure grinned, amused. "You are nothing but an illusion, Marcus. I am your truth. You cannot escape me." "Truth?" Marcus echoed, unwilling to succumb to despair. "No. You're just a figment of my fear." He took another step, vision sharpening, focusing on the faces of his comrades. "We have faced death before and triumphed." Then, the shadows swirled violently around him, forming new nightmares, visions of failing the mission, losing more loved ones, and becoming a specter haunting the very ones he loved. He recoiled but held his ground. "I see you," he panted, his voice steadying. "I see the lies you weave. You were created from my fears, but you cannot control me." Lyra surged forward, her blade gleaming with light that chased away the creeping shadows. "Together, we can dispel this darkness. Focus on the light. Our combined strength will purify this place." With that rallying cry echoing in his heart, Marcus felt the energy shift. The whispers in the shadows began to fade like echoes caught in a crashing wave. They were gaining ground. Yet the shadow of Marcus stepped aside, revealing a path that twisted deeper into the dark. "Run if you will," it sneered, "but what lies beyond is even darker than this." Marcus shuddered. The decision lay heavy on him. Could they venture deeper into this terror? Was there truly no end to the chaos? "Stay close," he urged, glancing back at his comrades. Each face showed a mix of fear and determination. Their hearts beat as one, their strength forging an unbreakable bond. They advanced cautiously, fighting against the oppressive atmosphere, each step heavier than the last. But just as hope flickered to life, the ground rumbled like a cyclone of dread beneath them, and walls of shadows began to converge. Make your choice. The voice thundered, unrelenting. Face the truth or be consumed by it. They halted, the path before them unfolding like a nightmare, filled with uncertainty. What awaited them at the end? Could they truly confront their darkest secrets? One thing was clear: whatever lay ahead would not only test their strength but could shatter their very spirits. Would they be able to weather the storm? Or would they, too, become mere ghosts in this shadowed realm? The shadows wrapped tighter around Marcus and his comrades, a living entity pressing closer, eager to consume them whole. The air thickened, turning their breaths into labored gasps, as despair crept further into their minds. Whispers echoed, snaky and insidious, curling around their resolve like barbed wire. In the silence that followed the thunderous proclamation, a chill swept through the group. Heartbeats raced, and Marcus could hear his thumping against the eerily quiet backdrop. Everyone stood, frozen between fear and the flickering embers of hope, the choice weighing heavily on them. Together! He exclaimed, though his voice trembled just enough for doubt to seep in. Lyra's blade flickered beside him, a beacon in the darkness. We're stronger together, she said fiercely, driving her resolve into their hearts. Her expression glowed with defiance, a stark contrast to the shadows surrounding them. They nodded, a unified front against their inner turmoils. But the shadows shifted, and with it, the ground heaved. A low growl vibrated through the dark, reverberating through their bones and rattling their spirits. Face the truth, Marcus. You think they'll follow you into this? They don't trust you. The doppelganger spoke, its voice mocking, filled with venomous glee. No. He shot back, conviction surging through him. They trust each other. We've made it this far. Marcus gestured to each of them, remembering their battles, their shared laughter, shared losses. Suddenly, a ferocious wind howled, cutting through their connection. Marcus felt it tear at their unity, a palpable force threatening to pull them apart. His comrades faltered, doubt creeping back into their eyes. We can't do this. One of them whispered, the fear spilling forth like a shattered dam. Lyra stepped closer to Marcus, locking eyes. We have to push on. If we don't confront this, we won't stand a chance. With a rallying cry, Marcus brandished the weapon at his side, the weight of it feeling suddenly grounding. They're counting on us. Our fight is not just against shadows, but against everything we've lost. We're allowed to grieve, but we move forward. His voice sparked something within. The winds calmed for just a moment, as if the darkness respected bravery before it surged back, stronger than before, filling their ears with howls of the past's failures, their guilt and regrets. We can't let it win. Lyra shouted, her blade once again alight as she took the lead, carving a path through the thick mist. With every step, we rewrite our story. As they advanced, pushing against the memories clawing at their minds, Marcus felt shards of their pasts flash in his mind, whispering old hurts. He stumbled slightly, gritting his teeth against the tide of darkness that threatened to wash over him. Then, the shadows began pressing in from all sides, closing the gap, eager to snuff out their lights. He pushed forward, feeling Lyra grip his arm tightly. Together. She urged again, her voice a lifeline in the rising chaos. Together. Marcus echoed. But that voice behind them, his double, the taunting specter, kept hounding him. Is this who you really are? The leader? You'll only lead them to their death. Shut up. He yelled, choking back the fear. I am not you. You will be. With one final surge, they barreled into the advancing shadows, ready to confront whatever lay beyond. They didn't know what awaited them, but retreating was simply not an option. As the shadows swirled around them, they leaped into the breach, heartbeats synchronized. Just as they did, the world twisted around them, darkness folding in like a closing door. In an instant, they found themselves on the brink of a black abyss staring down into visions of their deepest fears, each one demanding to be faced. Would they plunge into that void, or would they fight back? And in that fleeting moment, the flicker of light from Lyra's blade illuminated the terror ahead. What would they find at the edge of their fears? Would facing it fortify their resolve, or break them apart forever? The darkness throbbed around them, a living pulse that seemed to suck the very air from their lungs. Lyra's blade flickered like a dying star, illuminating fragments of the abyss, grotesque images of failure and loss that loomed like specters in the creeping void. Marcus felt a cold dread seep through him. This place, this raw nerve of their fears, was trying to fracture their unity. Keep your eyes on the light. Lyra's voice pierced the engulfing blackness. She stepped forward, leading them deeper into the choking shadows, though her hands trembled slightly around the hilt of her sword. Stay together. Marcus urged, although his own voice wavered as a howl of anguish echoed from the depths, clawing at his sanity. As they moved, the ground beneath them shifted, a terrifying instability that felt deliberate, as if the abyss wanted to see them falter. The visions intensified, swirling in front of Marcus images of his sister, her eyes filled with betrayal. Why hadn't he saved her? Marcus! Lyra's shout cut through the chaos. It was urgent, full of fear. I'm here. He gasped, forcing his gaze back to her. But the shadows screamed louder now, reverberating with past mistakes, judgments he couldn't shake off. An icy wind whipped around them, carrying the weight of their sin. You're not worthy of leading them. You failed, and you will fail again. The doppelganger's voice sliced through the noise, chilling him to the bone. No. He shouted, hands clenching into fists. I'm not that person anymore. We can mend what's broken. But the voices grew in intensity, drowning out his conviction, calling forth memories he couldn't bear to relive. He saw the faces of the ones he'd let down, their eyes hollow, their trust shattered. Panic surged within him, threatening to choke his resolve. Together. Lyra's fierce call surged through the despair, rekindling a spark. She gripped his arm, her warmth cutting through the fear. You have to remember what we're fighting for, Marcus. They believed in you. I know they're waiting for you. Do you want to let them down again? In that moment, something shifted. The weight of those memories transformed not as burdens but lessons. Gritting his teeth, Marcus let the thoughts wash over him, accepting their pain but refusing their power over him. I won. With renewed determination, he rallied his comrades. Focus. We're more than this darkness. We stand for each other. The shadows writhed, as if enraged by their defiance. They pulled back just slightly, allowing a sliver of light to pierce the enveloping gloom. It flickered, teasing them with hope, daring them to chase it down. Lyra smiled, a fierce defiance igniting in her eyes. This is our moment. We leap past our fears, we break them. Side by side, they surged forward, eyes fixed on the light, every heartbeat pounding like a war drum. The abyss roared in opposition, trying to shatter their resolve, but their unity blazed stronger. With every step, the shadows twisted around them, angry and wild, but they pushed through, guided by the glimmer of hope that seemed to pulse with life. Then, without warning, the ground beneath them gave way. They fell, tumbling through a void of swirling shadows, each reaching out for the others, desperate to hold on. As darkness swirled out of control, a chilling realization seeped into Marcus's mind. Was this truly the end, or were they just beginning to fight their real battle? And then, a piercing light exploded around them, blinding and confusing, a momentary glimpse of something beyond comprehension. What awaited them in that blinding brightness? Would it lead to salvation or further suffering? The light enveloped them, blinding and pure, stretching out like a vast ocean of brilliance. Marcus felt the warmth wash over him, pulling him forward, urging him to keep moving even as the darkness receded behind him. His heart raced. Was this the liberation they had fought for, or yet another trick of the abyss, as the light melted away the shadows, Marcus found himself sprawled on hard ground, gasping as he blinked against the overwhelming brightness. He quickly pushed himself up, eyes darting around to take in their surroundings. Gone were the monstrous phantoms of despair, a serene landscape stretched out before them, bathed in warm golden light. Lyra? Aaron? Alia? He called, panic creeping into his voice. Had the darkness claimed them after all? Here. Lyra's voice floated back, her silhouette emerging from a shimmer in the light. She stumbled forward but gripped her sword tightly, making her way toward Marcus. Relief flooded through him when Aaron and Alia soon joined them, their faces colored with the glow surrounding them. They stood together, encircled by tall, swaying grass that glimmered as if dotted with stars. It was peaceful, too peaceful. The vibrant colors felt out of place compared to the horrors they defaced moments ago. What just happened? Alia muttered, her brow furrowed. Are we dreaming? Marcus shook his head, the feelings of unease creeping back in. I don't know. But we need to figure out where we are. The silence hung heavy in the air. Suddenly, a low, rumbling growl broke through the tranquility, sending goosebumps down Marcus's spine. What was that? Aaron whispered, eyes wide with fear. I think it came from there. Lyra pointed toward a shadowy forest in the distance where the light dimmed unnaturally, as if the darkness had taken root again. A shared glance passed between them, a silent understanding that this next choice could determine their fate. They could retreat deeper into the light, shrouded by illusions of safety, or confront whatever threat lurked in the shadows. Let us go, Marcus asserted, and his voice was steadier than he felt. We're not running away again. As they headed towards the forest, the ground felt unsteady beneath their feet, as if it wished to swallow them whole. Each step brought forth the echoes of their past failures, the haunting whispers warning them not to enter the unknown. The growling grew louder, more ominous. Stay close. Marcus commanded, gripping the hilt of his sword as they walked deeper into the foreboding glow that twisted through the trees. Then, something shifted in the dark. A set of glowing eyes watched them from the shadows, their intensity blurring the lines of the light and dark. The creatures beyond the darkness were coming into focus. Be ready, Lyra warned, grip tightening. Fear intertwined with hope, uncertainty swirling as they stepped further, but before they could react, the growling transformed into a horrifying roar that shook the very ground beneath them. The monstrous figure charged, its massive silhouette breaking into the light, revealing razor-sharp teeth and rows of scars marking its body. What the hell is that? Aaron shouted, voice trembling. Marcus' heart pounded in his chest. This was no mere beast. It felt like a manifestation of their fears, returning to confront them in their most vulnerable moment. A frenzied instinct kicked in, pushing them back to their feet, but they would not cower. Light and shadow twisted around them, the boundaries of their reality blurring. In that instant, Marcus realized something crucial. The beast wasn't just attacking, it was testing them, challenging their very souls. Fight! He shouted, channeling all his defiance into that single command. The shadows roared, and the light flickered as they braced for an inevitable clash, but a question burned at the edges of their minds. Could they conquer this demon, or were they destined to be consumed by the darkness once again? The monstrous figure loomed over Marcus and his comrades, its growl vibrating through the air like thunder. It charged at them, a whirlwind of shadow and ferocity, but Marcus felt something shift inside him. This wasn't just a beast. They had faced much worse before. It was their fears manifesting, a challenge to prove their worth. Stand together! Marcus bellowed, raising his sword high, heart racing with purpose. The soldiers could hear the desperation in his voice, feel the weight of their shared experiences propelling them forward. This was the moment to claim their strength, to rewrite their narrative. The creature knocked against Marcus's comrades, sending Alia tumbling to the ground, her sword flying from her grasp. Panic surged through Marcus like a tidal wave. Alia! He shouted, but her fierce spirit ignited once more as she scrambled to regain her footing. Keep going! She urged, her voice a beacon of strength. With renewed adrenaline coursing through him, Marcus rallied. Together, we fight. For our brothers. For our sisters. He charged forward, cutting through the thick air, desperate to protect those who had stood by him against the shadows. The creature's teeth glimmered, looking to pierce through flesh, but Marcus sidestepped, feeling the brush of chaos licking at his back. He felt Lyra at his side, her blade illuminated in the dim light, slicing through the air. Focus. Aim for the heart. She called to everyone, striking in unison as they moved as one, every swing, every thrust connected with their resolve, pushing the beast back step by step. The fear that had moments ago paralyzed them began to dissipate, replaced by determination. They weren't mere shadows anymore, they were warriors forged in a crucible of fire. As they fought, the roars of the beast morphed into something else, muffled by the sound of their chants. For us. For them. For our future. The echoes gave birth to an overwhelming wave of strength, an energy coursing through the group that intertwined their hearts like a twisted vine, and then, just as Marcus thought they might find a victory, the creature reared back, unleashing a horrific roar that echoed off into the darkened trees around them. From that roar sprang forth shadowy appendages, distorting the fabric of reality, grabbing him, pulling him into the very essence of despair they had tried to escape. Keep moving. Lyra managed to scream, stretching out her hand toward him. He saw her determination in the glint of her eyes, her resolve fighting against the malevolence. With a guttural cry that shook the ground beneath, Marcus wrenched his arm free, fueled by the whispered names of lost comrades urging him on. He fought against the tendrils of dark despair. They were his past failures, his regrets materializing, but they wouldn't consume him anymore. We're stronger than this. He roared, locating the flicker of light that had guided them through their darkest hours. We carry them within us. In one final charge, he raised his sword, feeling the force of his comrades fueling him. The edges of their collective power ignited, merging with the beam of light as they surrounded the beast, a tide of courage clashing against the swirling chaos. The darkness abated as they drove deeper, pushing their fears back into the abyss where they belonged, and with a heartbeat that aligned with their unified cries, they plunged forward, swords piercing through the monster's chest. It howled, a wailing lament that echoed through the trees, before erupting into a blinding explosion of light. The pressure lifted, the oppressive darkness shredded away like mist in sunlight. Together, they stumbled back, panting, breathless, but alive. They had faced themselves and emerged whole, they had rewritten their tale. In the vibrant glow now surrounding them, Marcus turned to see Lyra, Alia, and Aaron breathe in the freedom they had fought for. The battle had changed them, connecting them in ways deeper than wounds and scarring. Hope blossomed within his soul. We did it, he whispered, disbelief coloring his tone. They were standing in a new world where shadows once lurked, a landscape awash with shimmering light and endless possibility. Together, they stepped forward into that light, leaving behind the haunting echoes. The past would always be a part of them, but it would never define them again. This was the dawn of something beautiful, a chance to honor the fallen and the courage to live fearlessly in tribute to those they loved. Let us go home, Marcus said, voice steady with conviction, and as they walked into the embrace of the sun, he knew they had forged their fate together. Remember, it's not about what they fought against, it's about who they fought for. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm and help us reach more fans. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this epic conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this amazing ending. Support matters, and only true fans understand the importance of these actions.